You are very welcome to Cawley's Call with me, Alan Cawley, powered by Benetti Menswear, a topical debate show covering all things Irish football, along with 1v1 interviews with top-class sports stars from a wide range of different sports.
It's me that's putting on the green jersey, me that's going to take flack from people to say, you're not even Irish. I was big enough to say, I'm going to take it.
There's many people I've spoke to, they always say, I used to put money on you scoring the first goal, but I've never seen any of that money though.
And Andy, he says, I want the performances that I got from you in Scotland with the under-16s, not that rubbish that you gave me over in Iceland. Yeah.
Hi everyone, and you're very welcome back to Cawley's Call. I'm absolutely delighted to say that joining me as part of our little preview setting up to Series 2 is the legendary figure of Irish national hunt jump racing, that is Barry Geraghty. Barry, how are you?
I'm good, Alan, how are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you. It's a pity it's over Zoom and over the camera like this, unfortunately, but the times that we're living. But you retired, Barry. I was adding it up there, was it only about 8 months ago? So the pandemic has coincided, obviously, with your retirement. I don't know, has that helped with the retirement, or is it more of a hindrance because you can't be out doing all the things you probably had planned in retirement?
I'd say it's probably in ways been a help. Obviously, you'd love to be, when retired, going away on a nice holiday and do lots of things, but that wasn't an option this year. But I suppose racing is less appealing as a jockey. You know, it doesn't have the day-to-day banter. The wear room is like any changing room, so that's gone. It's different. I've been racing. I've been working a bit for RTE, and I've been in Leopardstown a few times in Fairyhouse, and it doesn't have the atmosphere which would be normally used to. It comes across well on TV, but you know, it is a quiet, soulless place, so it doesn't have the same attraction, buzz, hype that you would normally have. And Cheltenham, for example, is going to be very different in a few weeks' time. So in that way, it's probably made it easier, but it's obviously curtailed options as regards what you'd like to do outside of racing.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you'll get to all them. But just in terms, Barry, of the decision to retire, is it one that you regret, or you're happy enough with? You're not having second thoughts or anything?
No, I'm not planning to come back anyway.
You're looking young and fresh anyway, so I see you could get away with it.
I don't know. I'm 41, so how long more could I push the boat out? No, it's time when it was good. It was good, and I knew going into Cheltenham last year, it was my last Cheltenham, and to get 5 winners, it probably, I posed a question after that to myself: do I need to stop? Should I just keep going? And then after a few weeks of mulling that, I was thinking, do you know what? If you're going to get out on a good note, isn't that a good note to get out on? So the time was right, and I can't say I'm regretting it at all. I'm enjoying my time to myself and kids and Paula and everyone. So it's you're watching your own clock rather than running around the place, flying England, Ireland, entries, horses, everything. It's hectic and it's brilliant. I loved every minute of it, but it's good to just get away from that pace in life.
Was it a decision, Barry, that you found hard to come to terms with or battled with for a while? And the reason I ask you that is because I watched Tony McCoy's documentary for the second time only the other night, and he had battled with it for a while, and obviously his wife was kind of influential in the decision as well and stuff. Was that something that you found hard to come to terms with, or something that you battled with a while? You mentioned there that going into Cheltenham you already had the decision made.
Yeah, well, I suppose over the last 5 years of my career, I spent 18 months in the sidelines. I broke both arms. I broke my leg, which had me out for 6 months. I broke 8 ribs and punctured a lung. I cracked a shoulder blade. So I had a bad run for the last 5 years. And the last leg break, albeit the whole way through that 6 months, and I had an external frame on it for 14 weeks, that was brutal. And the rehab from that was tough and the hardest I faced the whole way through my career. But never once through that was I planning my retirement or giving any thought to retirement. But when I got back going and was back racing, loving it, it just made you reflect and think getting out in one piece isn't just guaranteed. So maybe you need to embrace it before the decision is made for you and you wind up in a worse state than you would have been with a broken leg. So it took a little bit of time, but I suppose for the last few years, you're aware in your late 30s, you're well down the back nine. Most lads are in the clubhouse at that stage. So you're kind of thinking, yeah, it's around the corner and it's around the corner. So the time came when it just felt that this is the right time to finish.
And going into Cheltenham then, Barry, you mentioned there that you had the decision made. Obviously, you went on and had a great Cheltenham, one of the best you've ever had, and getting the 5 winners. Is there a peace of mind going into Cheltenham and embracing that festival that you have already your decision made? Or if you didn't have the 5 winners, would you have stayed on?
No, it was done. That was it.
Okay.
1 or 5 or none, it made no difference. I suppose going out with 5 meant that you were going out on the top. If you're out with none, lads would be saying you should have retired a year earlier. So no, it did sit comfortable with me, and I knew going into it, this was my final one, and I said, whatever success I have, I'm going to embrace it, enjoy it, and make the most of it. So I probably showed more emotion in last year's festival than I've done for years. I was really, giving it socks and lapping it up and loving it.
It's funny because despite all the success that you've had over the years, you said 20 years and winning all the top races, winning everything. I was only even going through some of your results there last night, and it's amazing the career that you've had and being around in the era of obviously McCoy and Ruby Walsh yourself. I was kind of nearly comparing it to the tennis era that's around now with Federer, Djokovic, Murray, like the best of the best. And you were so successful amongst that. But even when I was looking at the documentary with McCoy, it was amazing, despite all he had won, and obviously you were in the same position last year, despite all you had won, it still meant so much to just get that one winner at Cheltenham as a swan song almost. I think he rode Uxizandra to win. So it's amazing just the impact that still had on you.
Yeah, which it's like getting a goal in the All-Ireland final, or it's a big score, whatever your sport is. And your season is judged on Cheltenham. You can win all you want, but if you didn't have a winner in Cheltenham, it's probably not a great year. So it's our Olympics, it's our FA Cup final, it's our All Ireland final, it's whatever you want to call it, and it's the place you want to get a winner. And to get the 5 was, as I say, it took 3 weeks, so because it posed as much of a question as it did anything, because I was wondering, do I need to? But 3 weeks later, I knew it was right.
And just going back then, I suppose, to the early days, Barry, when it all started, I think your first winner was 97. And was it always something you were heavily involved with the horses from a young age, and it was always something you wanted to be a jockey, a top-class jockey?
Yeah, from a very young age, early teens, before my teens, it's like every sportsman, be a hurler or a footballer, you're glued to the television, you're watching the sport you love. And, as kids, myself and my 2 brothers, there wasn't that much between us. We came out fairly quick, one after the other. So we were living the dream as kids, racing around on ponies, watching the race and glued to it. That was the love. And I was riding pony racing through my mid-teens and getting on really well at that. And that it was there. I progressed from there to racing itself, and started with Noel Mead when I was 17.
And was the talent always there, or is that something you've had to obviously work on? I know everyone has to work on their art over the years, but was there a natural talent there from an early age?
Well, I'd like to think so, but maybe others would say it was something I had to work.
You're allowed to say if there was.
Well, it always sat very comfortably with me. I always enjoyed it. I could feel and read the same way as I could in, say, this year's Cheltenham Festival and Champ. Just feel and read, an instinct. And I suppose I always trusted my instinct, even at 17, and I think a good feel. So I think I think there was a good bit of a natural, but you do have to work, like everyone, you have to work on everything. So to refine it. So no, I'm sure there's a bit of both, but I always felt natural on a horse. So I'd like to think there was a good share of natural ability. I
think as well, Barry, from even me observing as a fan, and I love the racing, but there has to be, whatever about the talent, there has to be a certain element of bravery as well, because you've mentioned there some of the injuries and obviously the different kind of hurdles you have to cross, pardon the pun, but throughout your career with all of those injuries. But was that something as well, was there ever a fear in your mind or getting involved or kind of, especially at a young age, or your parents or anything like that trying to maybe put you off it?
No. And my parents were very much, into racing as well and loved it, and a bit like ourselves, didn't see the danger. And even when danger did come along, you wouldn't recognise it, and you just move on, and you hit the ground, you break something, how long will it be before I'm back? And that's all you're thinking about. It's not anything else. It's you're just so engrossed in it, and it becomes your way of being and your way of living, and it's brilliant. And it's I'm sure it's the same for people in all different sports. It's sport is at that level is consuming, in a great way. But it's I suppose it's that I'm enjoying being just out of the intensity of that.
My sport, obviously, in football, we always say the only ones that have a bit of madness are goalkeepers. But I mentioned bravery to you there. There must be a certain amount of madness involved as well to do what you have done for so long.
There is, and it's madness in your own thing. It's what you do. You don't see the danger. You're ripping around on a horse. You don't see it. You don't think about it. And even if it was to line up now with the minutes, you'd still just go with it and enjoy it, and that's the buzz. But you wouldn't get me on a motorbike. You wouldn't get me in the middle of a scrum. It's you pick your fights, and I was always happy on a horse. I always felt I had a good chance of coming out on top.
And despite that always been there, Barry, from a young age, as the years progressed then and the older you got or towards the end, and you mentioned there about before you did retire, the 18 months of the injuries that you suffered, was there ever a period throughout that time that you felt going to bed the night before a race or a bit worried or a bit tentative even in recoveries or coming back? Or was it always, you always had that fearlessness about you?
Well, no, just always loved it. And my first ride back after being out for 6 months with the leg, and that was hell, not just for me, but for Paul and the kids. They were stuck at home with me, going out with this steel frame on my leg, and it was no bed of roses, and I was gone quiet and inward, and that was my way of dealing with it. But Paula was, asking me through this time, do you really want to go back? Do you love it that much? And when we loaded up the car to head to Tipperary Racecourse on I think it was the 5th of October 2019, after being off for 6 months, she could see I was like a child on Christmas Day. So she knew then that, still loved it.
It's amazing, really. That's one thing, and I'm glad you mentioned Paul as well, because the one thing that struck me about McCoy's documentary is obviously Chanel is living through all that as well, and without that support base behind you, and as you said there, she just knew straight away you were like a kid on Christmas Day, despite everything that had gone before.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a shared marriage as regards Paula and racing. That's how it was, and I'd have to cancel.
Well, who's number one?
Cancel it. we won't say. But anything, you're on call the whole time. You get the phone call on Monday evening. I need you over in England on Tuesday evening for school and horses Wednesday morning, racing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, home Saturday evening. That could just come out of the blue and you're gone. So, we call it a shared relationship. We won't say anyone was a winner.
Yeah, she'd be happy with that as well. Going back then, Barry, as you say, like within 3 years, you were the Irish champion jump jockey, which was a hell of an achievement. Were you surprised at how quickly things started to go so successfully for you, or was there a period in your mind thinking it might take me a long time to maybe get to that level?
Well, I suppose you don't know at the time, and it's just things happen. I had good success riding pony racing, and I started with Noel Mead when I was 17 in September. I had my first winner at the end of January, and I had 16 winners between there and the end of May at the turn of the season. So things from the start, even riding pony racing, I was used to success, and not that I expected it, but I was comfortable with it, and it was an upward curve, if you like, all the way. So season on season, you were going up in numbers the whole time. So it wasn't a shock to find myself in that position. But I would have put myself in that position because I was going for it. I was chasing it. I was doing everything I could to ride as many winners as I could for as many different people. You're putting yourself out there, and you were embracing the challenge. So it would have felt natural to me. But looking back, it was a quick enough rise, and I was fortunate for that. But there's work. It doesn't just happen by chance.
Yeah, and the fact that I suppose that probably stood you in good stead, really, that you were embracing it. A lot of people can shy away from that, I suppose. But just in terms of, Barry, how much, we mentioned the talent, and without that, of course, you don't get the opportunities to ride these horses, or the trainers giving you those opportunities. But is there a bit of luck along the way as well in getting those opportunities with people? You've obviously ridden for unbelievable trainers, and as I say, we'll go through them as we go along, but you mentioned Noel Mead there, and then Jessica Harrington and your first Cheltenham winner, and on Moscow Flyer, and that horse is always kind of associated with you forever. Is there a little bit of luck involved in just getting the initial opportunity starting off, Barry?
I'd imagine so. You need luck, you need good luck, but you do, to a certain degree, you make your own luck as well, because you get the opportunity and it's up to you to deliver. And if you deliver, then you're climbing the ladder. If you don't deliver, you're going back down a rung. So it goes hand in hand. Opportunity needs to present itself, and then you need to be willing and able to go on and make the most of it.
Yeah, well, you more than delivered over the years, but I think that one, as I mentioned, Moscow Flyer, like, how big a deal was that, Barry, your first Cheltenham winner, and to win the Arkle as well, and such a brilliant horse? Do you often think about moments like that, or times, especially now that you're retired? I know a lot of sports people, when they're still involved in it, they tend to just move on to the next day. But do you look back on those moments now? Because especially, as I say, that first winner at Cheltenham is a huge, huge deal.
It is, and it's people ask you, what's your best winner at Cheltenham? I'd say my first one.
Really?
To get the first score on the board, that is so important. Gold Cups, Champion Hurdles, they are amazing. Like, it's all brilliant. But your first one is that's the most important one in the world. And some people might only ride one winner, and that is the biggest one they'll ever have. So it's the first winner at Cheltenham, and to get it on Moscow, who was a superstar, and I was very fortunate to get him and to have him and Jesse to back me all the way, because it wasn't always a bed of roses. He fell plenty of times, I fell off, and plenty of times there's our you could have been questioned, our relationship, if you like, but she never did, and she trusted me all the way through, and we had some brilliant days, and he was just an amazing horse, and I was very fortunate to get him when I was 20, and to have a flagship horse like that the whole way through for 5 or 6 years was brilliant.
It's amazing there to hear you speak, even just the relationship of you and the horse. And I get it in terms of I'm a racing fan and kind of understand a little bit. But for non-racing people, like, how does that relationship, how do you become so kind of comfortable with a horse, or the horse comfortable with you, Barry? Like, you could sit on a different horse and not have the same feel or the same relationship, I suppose, that you built up with Moscow.
Yeah, well, it's all experience, I suppose. And you kind of put them into categories as types. So if someone is telling you about him, you'll compare him to a fella you've ridden before, and as it's explained to you how this, you might never sit in a horse before, and you line up on him in the Entry Grand National, the most difficult race in the world, and your trainer will give you a little bit of advice, obviously, and then the fellow who rode him previously, he'll mark your cards, and you do the same for him in the same situation. So that's how the weigh-in works, and it works so well for that reason. So that bit of information, you're trying to compare him then to stuff you've done before, and you get a feel of a horse going to the start. Is he a strong puller? Is he relaxed? And you've watched him maybe in his previous runs. Does he jump well? Just that you pick up on things as regards the horse's way of being and his personality, and you don't be long about clicking into it. That's what you need to focus on as a young fella, is that connection. And you get it very quick if you work on it and are aware of it, and that's probably the natural horsemanship we spoke about earlier on. You see the real natural riders could get up on anything and just click straight away, and that's horsemanship.
You mentioned the Grand National there, and obviously the career now at this stage is on a serious upward trajectory. 2003, Barry, everything you touch is turning to gold, and of course the Grand National, Monty's Pass. You mentioned with Cheltenham there prior to that of it being like the Olympics or the FA Cup final. I know the Grand National is the flagship day in terms of for everybody in the world, whereas Cheltenham is obviously for the purists as such. But can you differentiate between winning a Gold Cup and then winning the Grand National, or is it just both of them are as special?
Well, both are special, there's no doubt about that. But the Grand National is the one that's known the world over. We've been to Thailand, and people asking us, what do you do? You're a jockey, and right over jumps. And next question is, have you ridden the Grand National? So it's known.
Really, yeah.
Over. The Gold Cup is in this side of Europe, if you like, France, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. It's the Gold Cup is for the purists, if you like, but the Grand National, that catches the attention of the world. So it's the one you grow up as a kid. If you're a 5 or 6 year old, you're dreaming of the Grand National. That's the one that it stops a nation and everything. So it's probably slightly ahead, but it's a great complaint to be trying to pick between the two of them.
It's a crazy race really for everybody, Barry, but I suppose, can you just give some insight into what it's like to ride in the Grand National? It just looks mayhem from start to finish, but is there any kind of sense of, for you, was there any sense of calmness throughout the race, or is it exactly as it looks on the screen?
It can be both. It depends what you're riding, and it depends what you're behind or what's around you. So if you have a horse like, so I won it on Monty's Pass. He had been second over the fences the previous year and the top of the race run on the previous day. So he jumped brilliantly. Then we knew, so going to Aintree in 2003, that jumping wasn't going to be an issue. Ground was right, everything was perfect for him, and he was brilliant. He went around, he never touched a twig, he was clever, he was brave, he was everything. And I think I only had one or two horses in front of me with a circuit to go. So all it was about for me the whole way through the race from that point to halfway was just keep him relaxed, keep a nice rhythm, and more or less keep your powder dry, save him for the finish. And it just played out in slow motion for a circuit of Aintree, and he won by 17 lengths or something. You couldn't get an easier winner. So that was the perfect one. But I've gone around Aintree and, had nightmares as well. Falling fell at the second, I fell at the first, I fell at Beecher's, I broke my leg in the top of the race I mentioned on Monty's Pass in 2019 at the third last, having jumped really well to that point, and someone gallops over you on the ground. So you could have the simplest fall, but you land underneath the wrong horse, or he's coming at just the wrong time and he meets the wrong part of your body. So it's very hard to judge, or you don't know what to expect. Expect anything, because anything can happen.
And despite, I suppose, everybody having dreams the night before and how you want the scenario to play out, at what stage then, you mentioned there kind of halfway, is it at that point you have a feel of the horse, as you says, you've only one or two in front of you, you're thinking, all right, I'm in with a chance of winning this here?
Pretty much, yeah. You're battling everything until that point. When you get in that comfortable spot where there's no danger of a horse falling in front of you, and all you can do at that stage, it becomes a race, and you concentrate on the race. But if you're stuck among 15 horses, and there's horses dictating where you're going or how much room you have, it's out of your control, a lot of it. So a horse just falls in front of you and boom, your race is over, down you go. So it's a luxury when you get to that point of the race, that you have room, space, time, and then you can start weighing up your options. And then you're going to what you would have thought all the plans the night before and the weeks before. You would have visualized everything, all the scenarios in the world. And like that as well, experience, your instinct is sharper because you've been in these situations before. You get a feel. All of a sudden you're saying, no, this isn't the right place, this isn't the right place. And you find yourself more room, and next thing something falls in front of you, or that would have been in front of you. Your instinct is very sharp when you've been around the mill a while, especially.
One thing as well that I've always wondered about the race in Barry, and I suppose we just see the lads, yourself, going out on the horse and away you go, but you mentioned it there even about maybe the planning that goes into it. Like, how much on the tactical side, would it be only for the big races that you would really delve into a lot of kind of the tactical side, or rather than a Monday at Plumpton or a Tuesday at Navan or something?
No, it's every day. Every day you'd get your racing post, you'd study the form, and you'd go out to the parade ring, knowing what the favourite's going to do, knowing the dangers, knowing how much pace there is, knowing where the best ground is. And that becomes just a way of being, and that you're armed with that knowledge for every race you go out in. And if you didn't, you'd feel as if you weren't doing your job. So that's, and like that comes from experience too. So you're constantly, you're trying to, the margins are so fine. You're trying to give yourself the best chance of winning the race. So no matter whether that's on, as you said, Plumpton on Monday, Fairyhouse on a Tuesday, or Aintree or Cheltenham on a Friday.
So 2003, obviously winning the Grand National, you had another couple of winners, Cheltenham, the Arkle, the Queen Mother Champion Chase, Kicking King now is beginning to come to the fore as well, Barry. Was that, you then went on to be the RT Sports Personality of the Year as well. Was 2003 like the life-changing year as such in terms of becoming a really prominent public figure?
Yeah, maybe it was, but I suppose in Ireland you'd never get too far ahead of yourself, so you don't.
They quickly bring you down in Ireland, Barry.
yeah. So you'd never feel like you're walking in water, or you can what you touch and turn to gold or anything like that. So yeah, looking back on it, yeah, but I can't say I would have felt any different then. I wasn't driving a fancy car or doing anything. You're stuck to your job. You're working hard. I was probably enjoying myself at times a bit more than I needed to, or I should have, but that kind of goes hand in hand with any lad in his early 20s.
Yeah, that's something in the book as well, where obviously, in them days, fair enough, it's the early days, as you said, a young lad in his 20s, success is all around him, you're enjoying yourself. As years went on then, to prolong your career, Barry, you spoke about Paul again being an influence in terms of maybe making some lifestyle changes also. Were you aware of that stuff in the early days, or was that something only they came to the fore the older you were getting?
I would have only come to the fore the older I was getting. Obviously more responsibility in life and kids and marriage and everything. But a lot of sport has changed in the last 20 years. The Wareham was a very different place 20 years ago from what it is now. If the lads riding now saw what happened in Galway or the Stowe or these places, even Cheltenham, Aintree. Like Aintree Friday night in Aintree was a big night. But that's not the case anymore, and it's the same with rugby, golf, everything. You read about all these ads, and it's the same thing. So sport has become more professional in that sense. So I suppose it kind of all went hand in hand, But it was brilliant. I've had a taste of both sides.
I obviously had the experience of dressing room stuff as well, and you mentioned the weighing room, dear Barry. And every time I speak to, say, lads of our age or whatever that had sporting careers, and they speak about those times that in our early 20s and the crack, and long before the stuff that maybe now and the camera phones and all that, you wouldn't change it for the world really them days in comparison to what the lads are going through now.
No, it was a more easygoing way, if you like. But no, the improvements though as well. When I was started riding, so 20 years ago, or 22 or 3 years ago, a 35-year-old jockey was an old jockey. There wasn't many went past that. Where nowadays, 40, I retired 40, just going 41. And that's become the new 35, if you like. I can't imagine pushing it on to 45 is ever going to really happen as a common thing, because, you're getting older, you have to draw the line somewhere, if you like. But no, it's I think we're in better shape, we're fitter, we're stronger. I'd say retiring in better shape for the same reason. So it's fitness is a big thing, and you're not going to be fit if you're living the lifestyle that was the way 20 years ago. So no, I think it's a good thing the way it's gone. It's a pity about the camera phones and social media and whatnot that can have a negative effect. But I think if you manage it right, and you're dodging bullets too as well. So it's you just have to be sensible as well.
We'll get to the social media and stuff in a wee while, but just in terms, Barry, of you mentioned the dressing room there, or the weighing room in your case. Who were the messers, or who were the ones that you would have thought, Friday night, lads, get the racing out of the way and here we go?
Yeah, well, I suppose Paul Carberry would have been a few years older than me, but I was probably Paul's apprentice there for a good few years through the early 20s and that. So whether it was Friday night or Tuesday night, it made no difference. It was... Yeah, it could be any night of the week was a good night. And
I suppose racing is such a social sport as well, so it almost goes hand in hand, does it?
It does, yeah, it does. But I suppose there was more of a culture before, and you could be coming off in Clonmel on a Thursday, and there could be a gathering in Kildare, and that might be as far as anyone might get for a few hours. So it's moved on from that. All ways of life are slightly different from that, but it would have been, as I say, a lot like other sports where it's a drinking culture, and as a young lad you're happy to enjoy it and embrace it. You don't see the downsides or the negative to it, because I suppose at a younger age it's not affecting your fitness levels or even your energy or buzz about racing or sport. So it's you can probably suffer the late nights easier at 23 or 4 than you do at 33 or 4.
Ah, yeah, you're fully entitled to do that as well, Barry. Don't worry. I never feel sorry that you did all that stuff.
Alan, I appreciate that.
Just then, Barry, in 2008, obviously you became the stable jockey with Nicky Henderson, who was one of the most famous figures in world racing, an unbelievable trainer. Was that a kind of a game changer? I know you had all the success prior to that at home here, but then to be going across the UK and become the stable jockey for him, how much of a game changer was that for your career?
Oh, that was a big game changer. At the time, Moscow Flyer and Kicking King had both come and gone, and I was low in quality through probably 2006, 2007. I was still riding winners, but just didn't have the volume or the supply that I had before. So things were on the slide a little bit for me, and I had a bit of a sliding doors moment when I thought I would have ridden Catch Me for Edward O'Grady, who was trained by or was owned by a friend of mine, Paddy Monaghan. But Paddy decided I wasn't lucky for him and Catch Me, having fallen a few times and got beaten. So he booked Ruby instead, and I was left on the sidelines, which was a bit of a sickener at the time because things weren't going brilliantly. But I got the spare ride on Punjabi for Nicky. This is in 2008 in the Champion Hurdle, and he finished third. Fitzy was riding another horse, Afstoon, I think he finished 7th or 8th. But then Fitzy got injured. Mick Fitzgerald got injured in Aintree, and I won on Punjabi and Punchestown on the Irish Champion Hurdle, and that opened the door to all the riches in Nicky Henderson's. So the timing, it couldn't have come at a better time because I was at a bit of a crossroads and things weren't going brilliantly. So it threw me a lifeline that was badly needed, and you're straight back onto quality again, and away you go.
Yeah, as you said, the riches that come with that and the quality of horses. But it's interesting you say your friend, even though he was your friend, he still wasn't putting you up on the horse.
Yeah, but I met him then I don't know, a few years later, and he said to me, he said, "Say thanks." And I said, "Thanks for what?" And he says, "For getting you the job."
He's still trying to take the credit.
He is. And would ring me off and reminds me about it as well. I mentioned it in the book, about this piece in the book, and he says that the sales for the book are going brilliant on the back of that story. So he's taking all the credit.
There's always one friend like that, isn't there, Barry? But yeah, so the Nicky Henderson thing is obviously massive for you. And you mentioned Punjabi there, then you go on to win the Champion Hurdle in 2009 on Punjabi. So again, an unbelievable moment for yourself.
It was brilliant. And at that stage, I'd been lucky enough to have won the Champion Chase twice in Moscow. I'd won the Gold Cup on Kicking King. I'd won the World Hurdle as well. And the Champion Hurdle was the one of the top four, the big four that had eluded me. And I even haven't finished second on it and ran well before. I thought maybe I'd never win one. But Punjabi settled that score. So it was brilliant and great to win one of the big ones at the festival in the first year in the job at Nicky, which was brilliant. And he was a brilliant man to ride for, and I'd still speak to him regularly.
And just because not only did that success bring you another record, you were the first Irishman then to have won all the 4 big champion races in the Grand National, which is an unbelievable achievement. But you mentioned there about the fact that obviously you'd taken on the role of the stable jockey for Nicky, but all the riches that come with that. But there must have been a certain amount of pressure with that as well, Barry, and to get the Champion Hurdle winner in your first year. Like, how much of a relief is that? Or would that have been something over the years would have played on your mind as the pressure grew, depending on the bigger the trainer you were riding for?
Yeah, well, I was quoted probably back to the early 90s in the Moscow Flyer era, because I was being asked about the pressure riding Moscow in the Champion Chase. I think it was in 2003, and I passed it off and just said pressures for tyres. It didn't worry me or affect me. But it was only when I went to Cheltenham in 2009 as stable jockey with a really strong book of rides. You're dealing with mostly one man, albeit different owners. So there's probably a weight of expectation. So it wasn't direct pressure on you, or there was never a word said, only do your job the best you can. You weren't being questioned, but there's just an intensity when you have the volume of horses and fancied horses for such a big yard. And it's the first year. I remember saying it to Ruby on the day. I said, "Geez, this is the first year I actually felt pressure coming here." And as I say, it wasn't external, because when Nicky would weigh out, especially after having had one winner, his instructions would be short and sweet, and he'd finish with "Have a nice time." So, just to try and let a bit of gas.
Really,
out.
yeah.
So he's a lovely man,
yeah.
And on the worst days, he's the best man, which is the most important thing. And I've gone through weeks in Cheltenham waiting for the Friday to get a winner. I remember having 3 seconds. I'm not sure, 2011, I guess, on the first day, and I waited until the Friday to win the Albert Bartlett on Bobsworth. But Nicky would never say a word. He'd just wait and he'd trust you. But it's your own pressure. It's your own drive and want, desire, everything to deliver and to get scores on the board. So it's more internal than external. On
that as well, Barry, because it's interesting, obviously, your individuals and all the jockeys, but whoever you're riding for, and you've ridden for all the best trainers, but you mentioned how Nicky was, I suppose, we equate that to man management in football or whatever. You're saying there about Nicky being a lovely man. Was that always the way he was throughout your time that you were working with him, and on the other ones that you had ridden for, were they all like that, or is there some that you could come in and if you gave a bad ride, give you a bollocking or get onto you or whatever?
Yeah, some if you give one a good ride and get beaten, you get a bollocking because someone has to take the rap. It's not going to be the trainer, so we can't very well name them, I suppose. But no, there's been plenty of high-profile.
Name away, Barry. Name away.
No, we won't start naming shame, but no, yeah, there's plenty. But it's and that's so true. It's man management, and the best trainers, get the best results by treating. It's by how you treat your staff, how you treat the lads riding for you, your jockeys. And Nicky was that way. I had my first ride for Nicky, I think, when I was 19 or 20, and he was the same then as he was a year ago. Lovely man, lovely manner. Oh, you'd get your bollockins, and we would have had clashes over the years, and I would never be shy to stand my corner if I felt it was right, but we'd a good balanced relationship. So no, but I've ridden for plenty of big trainers who would unload on you when things didn't go their way, albeit you might have done everything right or in your powers to get the result.
It seems though, and it's no coincidence, I'd have the same view myself, that you responded to that kind of management. And to me, management, like no matter what the sport, it's not rocket science. If you're good to people, they'll be good to you. It often amazes me how some people can feel as though they can get on to people, devour people. Now, I'm not saying there comes a time where you have to give someone maybe kick up the arse or whatever, but it often amazes me how some people can treat people so disrespectfully and expect to get a response from them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a lot of control with some people that they feel they're in control and they need to control everything. Whereas if you have a good enough jockey, it's Lester Piggott said it years ago. He said, the good jockey doesn't need instructions and the bad jockey wouldn't be able to carry them out anyway. So there's no point giving instructions. It's a bit like that. You have to, if you have a good lad riding for you, you just trust him, and that's a relationship that you build. But no, if you have someone who is second guessing you, you're going to start second guessing yourself, and you'll make the wrong decisions, and you'll ride the horse negatively, or you'll make the wrong decisions. Where if you have the right person backing you, you'll be happy to trust your instincts, and it works out 9 times out of 10. At least it worked out for me and Ed.
You mentioned Punjabi there, but probably one of the best days, I'm sure, for you with Nicky was the superstar that is Sprinter Sacra, and 2013 was it, and just seeing that horse in full flight, Barry. I know you have a big connection and a relationship with Moscow and all that came with that, but Sprinter Sacra was just amazing.
He was, there's no doubt. I could never split himself from Moscow as being the best I ever rode, because there were 2 superstars. Moscow went 4 years unbeaten, which I don't know if any other horse has done it.
Well, that was me next question, as to say, who can you pick? You obviously can't, no.
I couldn't, because Moscow, you judge Moscow on longevity, and when Moscow won the Tingle Creek in 2004, he beat Azertib and Wild Chief, and he beat Steel Band in his prep for Cheltenham one of the years by 2.5 lengths, getting a couple of smacks around the rear end. But Steel Band would be rated probably 30 pounds inferior. So he beat an average horse the same way as he beat Azertib. So he won the Tingle Creek in 2004, and that's probably the best, most competitive race I've ever ridden in. But he beat him the same as he beat Steel Band. A couple of tears around the rear end. He wins 1.5 lengths with a near prick looking up the stands. So he was probably good for another 10 lengths if he needed to at that point. And to go 4 years unbeaten, at some point in that middle, he was a superstar. Sprinter was all visual. Now, he was amazing. I never rode a horse over a fence like Sprinter. His pick-up and touchdown were just electric. And never have I ever sat in anything close to him. But he didn't have the longevity, but he had so much class. He broke the track record in Newbury on his 3rd run over fences, which would have been originally set by seasoned horses, and he broke it hard on the bridle, still running away at the line. So he was something special, but I could never disrespect Moscow by not putting him in the same category.
On Sprinter, Barry, we started this obviously chatting about fearlessness and adrenaline rush and riding a horse and all. To go around a racecourse and jump fences on Sprinter Sacra, like, what kind of a feel does that give you? Like, what could you even try and compare it to?
I never drove a Ferrari, so I can only imagine.
And all that success and game-changing moments, I thought you had 2 Ferraris.
No Ferrari, nothing like that. But it was easy because you're on sprinter. You were in 3rd gear when everyone else was in 5th, so there was no fear involved. I'd hate to be trying to match him or beat him, because you'd have gone a mile and a 2-mile race, and you'd be driving the head off your fella to try and stay with sprinter, and he would be just devouring ground, fences, and his jumping was electric as well. So he was. There's no doubt he was some talent.
As you said, that's probably the best way of describing him, because you often hear people now, if you see a horse like that, and an aeroplane or something, like, that's the way the description they'd put on it. But the day I saw Sprinter Sacre for the first time, everything that you've just described there is just amazing, and visually that's the thing that always sticks with you. Like, you see horses doing something like that, it's just incredible.
Oh, definitely. And I suppose when he won his Arkle, the previous year to the Champion Chase, I remember going on to start in the Arkles, obviously the second race of the festival, and my Cheltenham was, it was all built around sprinter, if you like. He was the superstar, and he was, albeit the Arkles one of the big races, but it's not the biggest ones of the week, but he was the superstar for the week. And I'm cantering down to the start, and I kind of just had to think to myself about it, and I just said to myself, do you know what, here we are now, and you could worry yourself into a situation, and I just kind of, I snapped out of it, and just said, you know what, this is just a horse race. Do what you do any other day, and that was it. Go back to basics, keep it simple, and away you go. You get the result. But I was kind of, I was going down to start thinking, this is it. This is the one, and we're here already. Second race of the festival, and this is happening, and you could start worrying or panicking or thinking. But no, I just said back to basics and keep it simple.
And was the information from Nicky always, like, did Nicky know as soon as he first got his hands on that horse, like, there's a potential superstar here?
Yeah, he did. I wrote him. I won him the first time in Ascot in the bumper, and the boys had really talked him up, and he only won a short head, so I was a bit kind of underwhelmed. But from there on, he was unbelievable. His novice year, he was interrupted a little bit. He'd won in November, and he got beaten, and he didn't run until February, and he won then. But it was when he went jumping fences. Then we knew there was this. When we schooled him over fences in October before he ran, we knew we'd something special on our hands. Moving
it on then, Barry, I suppose you finished your career in we mentioned all the brilliant trainers, but of course JP McManus, then you were famously riding for JP in the green and gold colours. How big of a deal was that then, or was that important to you, or just to ride for JP? Because again, such an influential figure in Irish racing, and I suppose it was an honour for you to be riding for him.
Yeah, completely an honour, it's right. It came at a good time, because I'd been riding for Nicky for 8 years, and it was brilliant, and I loved it. But life was very much focused on England, and I was gone maybe 4 days a week, 3 to 4 days a week from October to the end of April. That's tough when you're married and you've 2 young kids at the time. We've a third one since. But that's hard, and a lot of juggling goes on. But I was finding myself that on a Sunday with a big meeting in Leopardstown or Fairyhouse or Punchestown, I actually wouldn't have a ride, because I was so committed to England. I wasn't getting the good rides in Ireland because I wasn't going to be available come the spring festivals, because I'd be tied up with Nicky. So I was busy Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday in England, maybe a day off Sunday, which you didn't want to be off. You'd rather be off on a Monday, and I might be needed back in England again on the Monday to go to Kenton. So it had become very top heavy, if you like, my commitment in England. So just at the time that the offer came to take up the job with JP, it was a good timing, and it was an honour to get the job, and all the horses, the talented horses that he had for me to ride. So it was a step across, if you like, and it just offered the opportunity of being busier in this country.
Like, no matter what sports person you talk to, the hard work that goes in behind the scenes that a lot of people wouldn't see, they'd only see out on the pitch or out on the track or whatever the case may be. And we mentioned about injuries with yourselves, and I'd always say jockeys are the toughest sports people I've ever kind of came across. But separate to that as well, as you say, is the commitment in terms of getting up in the mornings, riding out, then you're going off racing. In your case, you were going over to the UK 3 or 4 days a week. Like, the level of commitment is unbelievable, and people only see it on the racetrack for that 2 or 3 hours, but they don't see everything else that goes with it from a Monday to Friday or Monday to Sunday.
Yeah, no, it's non-stop. It's hectic. It's brilliant. But it is hectic, and it's every day of the week, and you're on call. You could get a call that you need to lose 7 pounds for tomorrow, and that's it. Away you go. Start running, start starving yourself, start sweating, and that can happen any day of the week. You know, it's constant. You're on call 24/7, but you're doing what you love, and if you're getting results, you know, you love it twice as much. It's harder for the lad who's not getting winners and he's given all the commitment, but at least if you're getting a good return for your commitment, it's very justifiable.
Did you ever struggle with any of that stuff, Barry, in terms of your diet or trying to cut weight, as you say, or prior to races? Was there ever a point where you were like, oh, I just can't deal with this? Like,
well, there's plenty of points I would have
every
felt
day.
like that, but no, I wouldn't say every day. I'm as a jockey, I was one of the bigger lads. You know, I'd be 10.9 or 10.10 most days of the week. That would be my fit weight. But I remember one Christmas, could have been 2002 or something like that. I'm not sure what year it was. No, 2016 actually. And we went to Kerry for Christmas with Steph and Paula, and with a few days off. So anyway, I wound up 11 stone on Christmas Eve morning, and I had to be 10.2 on Stevens' day. So I had a hard slog over Christmas to get down to 10.2, and got to 10.2, and the horse won as well. So it was all worth it. But that's the type of thing, you know. It's but I had the good sense in years after that, maybe just to keep a better check on my weight and maybe not let it go so much. But it is a constant one. You're minding it. Your choice is what you eat, you know, and you make the right choice. You know, there's good reward in that, because you're not going to find it as difficult. But if you've eaten a Chinese or a pizza or whatever, you're going to pay the price for it.
Yeah, and I suppose the level of satisfaction that comes with, as you says, you were winning big races, riding for big trainers, big owners, whatever. So there must be a serious level of satisfaction in that. In terms then, Barry, with the JP McManus thing, I know you touched on it earlier, that the injuries and you probably didn't get a clean run at it, but did you ever feel then there was a period where, as you're coming to the latter end of your career, and did you feel there was probably a little bit of stick coming towards your way, or did you feel that was fair, unfair, or how did you feel about that at the time?
Yeah, no, there was plenty of, I'd say, trainers not happy. JP said to me in Punchestown, you know, that when he said he was going to have a first jockey in the 2019-20 season, that some trainers weren't happy with me riding. So yeah, I was obviously taking the rap for maybe horses not performing as well as they should by those trainers. But yeah, it was a shock at the time. But you know, and like that, retirement was an option. And I remember speaking to Paul about it. And as much as she'd have loved me to retire and get away from all these injuries, she said, no, pick your time. You know, that you can retire today, you can retire in a month, you can retire in 6 months. And that's what I needed to hear. And out I went and got stuck back into it. And albeit I didn't rush in a winner straight away, but I did my job as well as I could, and you know, and fought back into a strong position again. So it's you'll always have critics, and you need to overcome it. But it's about self-belief, and yeah, commitment. You get the return.
And that conversation with JP, how does that go, Barry? Is it just an honest conversation between the two? There's a good relationship there, and he just kind of tells you straight out?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, no, it was a shock to me at the time. But yeah, it was pretty much straight out, and you know, he said to me, "Prove them wrong." So that was up to me. That was handing the baton to me to prove them wrong, and he gave me the opportunity to prove them wrong. And I suppose it was a month later, I rode a horse called Ballyosheen in Killarney in a 2.5 mile chase on fast ground, and blitzed around, ping fences, flat to the boards, won well, and that was a step back in the right direction.
Yeah, no better way than to answer them, of course, Barry. You come back then, Cheltenham last year. We mentioned earlier you already had known it was going to be your last Cheltenham, but you probably never in a million years could envisage the fact that you would have such an unbelievable time and to have 5 winners. It was just incredible, and it was almost like you had come full circle then for all you had achieved in the early part of your career, the middle part throughout, the little bit of stick you might have taken, and here you were being the king of racing again, and in Cheltenham must have been an unbelievable feeling.
It was. And, you know, I'd won the champion hurdle a few years before that on Bouvedere, and he was 4-6 favourite, and he hung on by a head. And I know if I watch the footage back, it's you know, I was delighted he won, but you're not just showing the same emotion or joy. But as I said to you earlier, I knew going into Cheltenham it was my last one, and I really wanted to embrace it. And yeah, so if you see the joy in my face after Epitant winning the champion hurdle, and likewise then for each of any of the winners afterwards, and for my last ride at the festival on St. Roy, sign off on a winner. It was the perfect storm, if you like. So I couldn't have asked for a better way to finish off. And at 11 rides and 5 of them won and no second, that to me I'd always take comfort in that you'd always want to ride more winners than you do seconds. Is in any horse who finishes second, how do you get a chance of winning? So I'd no second, so there was no horse that had a chance. Any horse who had a chance of winning won. So for me, I couldn't improve on that.
No, it was amazing. I remember tweeting at the time because obviously I had gotten to know you a little bit, and I felt for you a little bit, I suppose, throughout that period where you were injured, and then there might have been a little bit of stick, and to come back, the cream always rises, and it was just amazing to see you. As you said, you were so happy, you could see that on your face, but to get back to where you belong, really, it was an unbelievable thing for us to see as well as fans. I'm sure you felt it personally, but for us to see as fans, and like the general consensus around as well, Barry, like for all that you had achieved over the years, you could sense that amongst the public as well. It was just unreal, like.
Yeah, and it was brilliant. I enjoyed it, really enjoyed it, and enjoyed all the tweets and messages and phone calls and texts, and there was a great buzz off it. But I'd given myself permission to enjoy it because it's a bit like a lad scoring a goal in the first half. He's not going to run around for the rest of the game smiling. Cheltenham is 4 days, so you have to keep a balance and you don't get too carried away with success. But I gave myself permission that week that I'm going to embrace it, enjoy it, and make the most of it. And yeah, I really could soak it all in.
I'm that lad that scores the goal and runs around going mental for the day. I couldn't care less after that. But so obviously retirement has come, Barry, as we know, but you're doing a lot of the media stuff now and the punditry. Do you like that side of it? It was probably the natural progression to go down that road, but how have you enjoyed that? The stuff with at the races and of course RTE?
Yeah, no, I do enjoy it. And I suppose it gives you a good connection with racing as well. I always would have followed everything, or definitely the better end stuff, if you like, the stuff you're going to be meeting in Cheltenham. So you'd watch it closely, but it's good to have reason to study it. You're not just watching it for the sake of it. It's really, you're studying form, you're taking notes, you're still, it's a continuation, if you like, of what I was doing for years. So I really am enjoying that. We've an online show through At the Races, through the website, Off the Fence, and Tony Keenan, a Monaghan man as well. So he's really good on it, and Vanessa, the presenter in England. So it's good fun, but it's a good way to keep yourself, to force yourself to be in touch and just to be doing the homework and what you would have done for years. And yeah, you're predicting things, and your judgment, you're putting your judgment on the line as well. So it's I'm really enjoying that, and the work with RTE is much the same, and it's definitely something I'm enjoying. It's
amazing. Yeah, I'm the same. I would have been an anorak watching every match and watching everything go, and I'd be analysing matches, talking to myself in the house. So to do it as a job, it's not a job. It's incredible, really, that you get the opportunity to do that. But as I say, it's not work.
No, it's not. It's not work, and it's as you say, it's a continuation of what you love, and you love your sport, and you love watching it. I was chatting with Robert Power. He called me there earlier on. He was just tossing a few ideas around between us, and a good connection. Andrew Thornton rang me as well from England. A fellow rode there for years, and we were talking about the young Bowen lads and jockeys. And I was saying to Andrew how he was always a brilliant man through a race to find better ground, and a lot of lads don't do it, or it's not in their instinct. And he was just talking about how he's teaching a couple of young lads there, the young Bones, James and Sean Bowen. And I said it's brilliant for him to be passing on his experience, because he was, like, visually he was a long way from Frankie Dettori, but tactically and his awareness was brilliant. And just to pass that on is great as well. So there's lots of sides to racing apart from just being a jockey or other sports, being a footballer. It's nice to be able to move on to different things and enjoy it as well, enjoy being involved.
Okay, Barry, I think we're at the end now, but you've been absolutely brilliant with your time. And as I say, I've gotten to know you over the last few years. You're an absolute gentleman, and I appreciate your time and also the unbelievable stellar career that you had. And it was a pleasure speaking to you.
Cheers, Alan. Good to see you.
Thank you for listening to Cawley's Call, powered by Benetti Menswear. For more interviews like this, please subscribe to my podcast or follow on all my social media channels.